You're a cantaloupe.
5 long years he wore this watch up his ass.
These are my cactuses. I put googly eyes on them.
Sometimes when I'm driving, I have this sudden impulse to turn the wheel quickly, head on into the oncoming car.
Peter Pan has found a mother.
You want me to say what? Like, I don't get it. Is that it?
The ice is gonna break!
All right. Welcome back to Walken 101, the podcast where we watch every single Christopher Walken project in chronological order. Now that could be play, movie, TV show, anything we can get our hands on. I am Kenny Johnson, documentary filmmaker, editor, friend of nature.
Yeah, you already did that one. That was
I did that one last week?
Yeah, you did. It was like episode 2, I think. You gotta think of something else. Oh, well, it's too late. We'll wait for the next one. I'm Brandon Hardesty. I'm an actor and editor. Avid sushi consumer. How about that?
That's a good one. I was going to say fan of architecture. That could be my new one.
There you go.
Why not? I wish I could be an architect.
Well,
moving on. All right, so
fucking bizarre.
All right, so let's catch up. It's been a little bit since we recorded an episode. I think it's been about a week or two.
Yeah.
Right? So where have you been? What have you been up to?
I spent a week in Tennessee with a friend of mine, Tony. He's an actor and a writer in L.A. and he was visiting home. His family's in Tennessee and like near Knoxville. This is like amazing, like beautiful, like 8-bedroom house. And we spent about 6 days. We're trying to write a pilot. So that's what I've been doing. And then I just got back. Like last week.
Right.
And just been working. You know, I started classes up again at CCBC. And that's
getting ready to teach the kids, right?
Yeah, still working. You know, it's one of those things. I'm working towards the degree, but at the same time, I'm getting a lot of work with IMDb. And if I end up getting enough of it, I'm just gonna stop taking classes for a while,
right?
Because I would, this could lead to something else.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of, and at the same time, auditioning for things and writing. I'm just kind of hedging my bets and doing a shitload of things at once and seeing which one hits. I guess so. But I want to be making progress,
right,
in several things.
I guess. Stay busy.
Yeah,
stay busy. Work on stuff.
Feels good to stay busy.
Right.
Yeah. How about yourself?
Okay. So what have I been working on? I've been still kind of. I think we talked last time about I'd love to do a documentary on a magician. So I'm still kind of working on that. All of a sudden, I got really sidetracked with studying Houdini.
Okay.
So reading books, watching. I found like this really old documentary about him, and I'm just so fascinated by Houdini. He wrote books about the afterlife, like him trying to basically disprove, those people who hold seances to try to communicate with loved ones of the deceased. Mm-hmm. And
it didn't. Sorry.
And he would always just try to disprove him, and I'm just so fascinated by that, and I love that whole like trying to prove those people who can quote unquote talk to the dead.
Have you seen the James Randi documentary?
No.
Do you know who James Randi is?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh man, you would love it.
Yeah.
I wrote a whole script with a friend of mine, like based on James Randi, and I did a lot of research on him. It's a really fascinating dude.
Interesting. So
he spent he was like a magic debunker after becoming a professional magician really early on.
Yep.
He spent decades and has spent decades debunking spoon benders and shit like that.
So I'm so fascinated by that stuff. I've been working on a secret project.
Okay.
A secret project for like 2 years now. You've seen it.
Yes, I have.
And we've expressed our feelings of it. And I'll wait for it to come out before I really kind of delve into it. There's parts of it that I really enjoy. I can't go into too much detail of it because it's still quote unquote a secret project that's kind of been building in the background, but it's been like 2 years of making this movie. Mm-hmm. And the time has been somewhat fun and other times have been very annoying. So I'm ready to move on. I'm so ready to move on.
Yeah.
We spent yesterday editing a lot more than I thought we were going to.
Right. And this is one of you've been like re-editing this kind of constantly.
God.
It seems.
It's the never-ending film.
Okay.
Never-ending. I don't know if it's ever going to finish. We were promised some certain things from certain people, and things have changed. It's not their fault at all. It's just the circumstances of this movie and how it's being presented. It's a very, very peculiar project. It's something very new for me. It is kind of a quasi-documentary, I would guess. That's why I was brought in, because I'm the documentary filmmaker guy, I guess, of Baltimore. So, yeah, it's been a wild, long, grueling, frustrating, painful, gassy ride. All right. So, our film that we watched for this episode, this was the Mind Snatchers, aka the Happiness Cage.
Yeah, the Happiness Cage was the original title, and then they changed it to Mind Snatchers, which is presumably because it was a catchier title, kind of grabs you a little bit more.
Got to snatch them.
Got to snatch them.
Right.
Gotta snatch them minds.
Right.
Yeah, it was made in 1972. And looking this up, it was really hard to find information about this movie. It was based on a stage play of the same name. And it looks like it's kind of revered and looked back on as this kind of cult science fiction-y B movie. It's not very good. It has good moments in it. And Christopher Walken is it says this is his first starring role. But as we'll soon talk about, Ronnie Cox, this character actor, probably known for Deliverance.
RoboCop, he played Dick Jones. He was the antagonist. He was in charge of OCP, and he kind of was a bad guy in RoboCop.
Yeah, so like Ronnie Cox he played like this supporting character in it, and he shined more than Christopher Walken did. In fact, with the stage production of this, Ronnie Cox, it was his breakout performance on stage. I found this article from in 1974, Independent Press Telegram from Long Beach, California, saying that after the production of this play, The Happiness Cage, his performance attracted more than 200 calls from agents and producers and brought his important role in Deliverance. So this was a really jumping off point for Ronnie Cox. As for Christopher Walken, he said he had this to say about this movie in a 1980 interview for Cosmopolitan. And I'm just reading what the writer said. He goes, "After The Lion in Winter, having retired his dancing shoes for good, Walken distinguished himself in several commendable, if uncommercial, theatrical projects, and made his movie debut in a secondary role in Sidney Lumet's The Anderson Tapes," which you and I talked about, and followed by The Happiness Cage, a flop in which he played a surly soldier whose rebellion is quelled by lobotomy. And Christopher Walken, I'm going to every quote I read will be in Walken's voice.
Right.
"That one was a piece of garbage," he says, stroking his briefly docile cat. And for a while...
Oh, man.
And for a while, it seemed my career in film was finished. I wasn't demoralized. I just felt that's the way it is. Most actors never even have a movie career. And that was all I could find about him talking about this movie. So
wasn't a highlight in his career, it seemed like.
It wasn't a highlight, and I think... he said after this and what was the other one? Anderson Tapes. He did make a movie for several years.
Yeah.
I think the next one he made was probably Next Stop Greenwich Village, which was maybe 4 years later. So
right. So there was some time. He just decided, movies aren't for me.
Yeah.
Movies aren't maybe for me. Maybe this is a big misstep. Maybe I should just go back and do what I enjoy, and that's performing, being an actor on stage, doing that kind of stuff. So that's where he was.
Yeah.
At the time in his life, 1972, we're at. Still young Walken.
Yeah.
Very young.
Still young.
Somewhat bright-eyed, bushy-tailed.
Yeah.
It's starting to get a little depressed.
Maybe. Oh, well, now let's talk about the plot of this movie first off.
Okay, let's go right into it. Let's down and dirty. The down and dirty synopsis of this movie. Okay, now I was bored in this movie.
I was very bored also.
Very bored. Okay, so it starts off. It is Christopher Walken plays. You said he was. He's in the military, I believe.
Yeah,
Character private.
He's Private James Reese.
Okay, right. First scene right off the bat. We have Walken come in. He's crazy eyed. He's already got the crazy Walken eyes. He's looking weird.
He's walking into a party somewhere in Frankfurt, Germany, and he's just gotten out of the pen.
And he's a jerk.
He's an asshole to everybody at this party.
He threatens to punch a woman in the face at one point. He's like, "I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a woman. I'll punch you in the face."
Yeah,
Yeah. And you're like, "All right, yeah. This is the Walken. This is the Walken that we want."
I don't care if you're a girl. I'll punch you right in the mouth.
Oh, please, we stop it.
And it's also just interesting, like, okay, where is this going? He's an asshole. Is this kind of like Clockwork Orange-ish, where
Okay, yeah.
where it's what's the main character in Clockwork Orange? I forget his name, but
but you know,
Malcolm McDowell. He's like an asshole at first, and then he's going to get corrected.
right.
That's how that seemed like they were setting it up like that.
Sort of. But he is not the asshole to the extent of McDowell at all. He's just a jerk. He's a smart ass at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And this also too was probably, I think this was 3 years before One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest too, so it had a little bit of those little touches of those movies in it, but it was nowhere near as good as any of those ones that we mentioned. So Walken, we find out he's in the military. The military police come and they arrest him, and they kind of get in a little bit of a scuffle. They break his arm, and he's kind of in jail. And everyone's like, "Why are you acting like this? Are you crazy? Are you a little bit of a schizophrenic?" And once again, hey, schizophrenia. It's another theme that we keep
coming back to
encountering. So they send him to this hospital, and he's at this hospital. He doesn't know why he's kind of being held there. It's him and two other people
In this huge hospital.
And it takes almost an hour to get to the point of what is going on.
Yeah, and what's really frustrating is, and I think probably frustrating acting as this character is, his character's written is very antagonistic, very just angry, lashing out, kind of funny in the first 10 minutes. Like
Yes.
the MPs are driving him to the hospital, and he's like, hey, can we make a stop? I gotta go wee-wee.
Yeah.
And then he says, oh, whoops. Never mind.
He's just being a complete jerk to these guys.
Yeah.
He's like, he's a smart ass. He's like, oh, I wanted to be an MP when I was 6. You know, it's just like, you're just a douche.
Yeah.
And then he has this really awkward part where he walks into the hospital and he looks around, and then he just kind of slowly hunches over and walks in really like a weird dance. I don't know what it was.
I think, and Christopher Walken's been on record saying that he sometimes puts dance moves into his roles. I don't know if he started doing that this early, or if that was even a dance move. It looked like he was trying to get the underwear out of his crack without touching it.
So weird, and it was just so subtle and what?
Yeah.
You were like, what did they know the camera was still rolling? Why is this in the movie?
Yeah.
But
now at this point, we're still enjoying it because he's fun to watch. And then he gets into this hospital. Now, they've established him as this antagonistic person who's this rebel. And then he gets into this hospital, kind of imprisoning him against his will, and barbed wires and dogs, and it looks like they're doing experiments on somebody's brain. Mm-hmm. And instead of expecting him to really lash out and be like, what the fuck are you doing? Get me out of here. Mm-hmm. He spends there's just an hour of him just wandering around the hospital going,
what's going on?
What's going on? What's this? And he's just it's almost like his character changes, and I think it's because they needed the writing, they needed the plot to go in a certain direction, and they just gave him all of the expository dialogue.
Yep, he was simply there to serve exposition, and to ask questions and to move the scene along, because the other person that he is sharing the room with is played by Ronnie Cox. He's just kind of this crazy dude. I guess he's a little bit Southern. There's thoughts of women and loneliness, and it's all these great. He's just crazy. He's a crazy dude at the end of the day.
And there's a lot of layers to it.
There's a lot of layers, and he really steals, I guess, the movie in a sense.
Yeah.
And it becomes more about him. And then Walken's just kind of in the background asking questions. What's going on? Why are we here? Mm-hmm. And finally, I think at one point, the Ronnie Cox character has at least 2 great monologues where it's kind of delving into why he is the way that he is. And the whole time, I'm sitting there thinking, man, wouldn't it be great if Walken was in that role instead?
Yeah.
He was the other crazy inmate who had all these weird sexual desires, and he just was a nutcase. He had all these great lines, and I was like, why? And then I ruined the movie for myself, because the rest of the movie I was thinking about, what if Walken was Ronnie Cox?
Yeah.
What if he was the crazy guy? There's a scene in there where he forces himself on this nurse, and then he talks about how he was in Vietnam and he accidentally threw a grenade on a fellow soldier and killed him, and you're like, wow, this is some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
60 minutes into the movie.
Yeah. It took a while.
It took a while to get there. And so I ruined the movie for myself at that point. I was like, I can't watch it, because I would just think, oh man, I wish Walken was saying this stuff.
Yeah. And something else about just going back to Walken reflecting on this movie and his acting career in general, I think he's like, seems like he was really hard on himself. Like he really seemed fine in this movie.
Yes.
But I think if it's true that he didn't make another movie after this one for like 4 years, maybe the reasoning behind it was I was imagining picking up this script and being told I'm going to play this lead role.
Right.
And I would read it and I feel like I would not know what to do. I would feel very uncomfortable. There are lines and things that he does that don't make sense for his character because they are just trying to serve the plot. Mm-hmm. And like I feel like that's a trap that it all starts with writing. If the writing's bad, there's almost nothing you can do.
Right. And he definitely seemed at those scenes like he'd almost kind of coast through some scenes.
Yeah.
Like simply he was just there to kind of set up this one thing. So he would just kind of be like, okay, yeah, here I am. I'm going to say the line now and we're going to set it up. And you're like, okay. But then in other scenes, he would be like this intense, crazy person. I'm like, okay, those are better scenes. Those are well-written scenes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is the major problem with this movie, that it is a stage play. They simply adapted it almost straight to screen, and there would be phenomenal scenes, really good scenes, but then they would just keep going on. There's a great part in here where Ronnie Cox's character is talking about, Walken is saying, what is going on here? I feel like there's craziness all around us. Like, they're not telling us things. And Ronnie Cox would be like, you remind me of this one kid we would go into this dark room with. Yeah. Anytime we go into a dark room, this one kid would always say, oh, guys be quiet. You hear that? And then he'd make up some noise to scare everyone else. So he was just trying to make trouble. And then Ronnie Cox would be like, you know what I did to that one kid one time? He said, okay, we're in this dark room. And he says, oh, what's that? And then Ronnie Cox just slaps him in the face. He's like, I don't know. I don't hear anything. But did you feel that? So like Ronnie Cox is just kind of that. He just summed up everything that he was feeling.
Yeah.
Just what you're trying to make trouble here, Walken. I'm just trying to get by. And then the scene just went on. And we thought it was going to end right there. It was perfect. Could have ended right there.
Yep.
And it kept going on. And then Ronnie Cox did a whole other monologue about being lonely and wanting love and all these other things. And I was like, what?
Yeah, like if you're watching it on stage, I would see it being more compelling.
Right.
But there were certain things that just because it was filmed, it didn't translate well.
No.
So what? Now we've talked about. So Walken's gotten into this hospital.
Yes.
And things strange are going on. We find out that this doctor
experiment. Yes, the doctor.
He has these experiments where he is what he does to Ronnie Cox's character in one of the best scenes in the film. Again, without Walken completely.
Nothing.
Is he implants these things into Ronnie's head and he gives him a button, and whenever he pushes this button, and there's a big thing goes, you have to push the button. I can't push the button. Mm-hmm. And so Ronnie Cox's character, he pushes the button and it just delivers this pleasurable stimuli to his brain. Right. And the scene, I really like the scene because he pushes it and he registers it and it feels good, and I don't know, I might do it again. And then he keeps hitting it and it just builds and builds and builds, and I'm pretty sure he just like ejaculated in his pants because it was just so pleasurable. Right. And then Walken comes in and he unplugs the shit off of his head, and then Ronnie Cox, he just goes ballistic like trying to push the button and it's not working, and then Walken like sinks down into the corner of a room. And again, it would look more effective on stage, but I thought that was a really good moment.
And he's fighting with the doctor. The doctor, by the way, is played by, I believe his name is Josh Auckland, and he played, I think, the villain in Lethal Weapon 2. He was also in The Mighty Ducks. He played maybe the fatherly figure to Emilio Estevez, something about hockey, I can't remember. But he's another great English, kind of somewhat of a character actor. Mm-hmm. So he was fantastic in this role as the doctor.
Yeah.
And he's fighting with Walken, and we finally get to the second to last scene where Walken decides to go with the procedure. He's got his head all bandaged up, and he's got the electrodes in his brain and all these other weird things. But the doctor has the button to activate the pleasure zone in his brain.
And now with the doctor's motivation for doing all this,
we finally, almost. at the end of the movie, we finally get some why these characters doing these things. The doctor reveals that apparently maybe he had a son who committed suicide because maybe he was mentally unstable at some point. So the doctor feels obligated, if I can help these people in some way, almost override these feelings of depression, of schizophrenic behavior, of all these bad negative things.
Yeah.
But Walken counters that, saying, those are, I think people misdiagnosed him. Walken's just a jerk. He's just a smart ass at the end of the day.
Yeah, they're the parts of his personality.
Right. They're just character flaws. They're simple character traits, maybe. And Walken says, by changing those things, you change me inherently. You erase something in me.
You're lonely, confused, frightened, thoroughly unhappy.
Oh, man. You don't like what you see, look the other way. Those things you just called me, they're conditions, states of being. They're not crimes or diseases. They're not sins. They're not even fixed and constant things inside me. You can't burn them away like warts. You don't just cut them out.
But you can override them, the way that certain drugs override pain.
Oh, why? Because they're not pretty to look at? Because that side of reality makes people uncomfortable? Jesus, doctor, I need those things. I don't love pain, but it defines me. It's part of what I am. Who are you to come along and just erase that?
And the doctor doesn't see it that way. So it's this fantastic scene.
Yeah, it was really good.
The doctor has the button where you can activate the pleasure zone in Walken's brain. And Walken's like, go ahead, push the button. Push the button. And he finally gets this great monologue where it goes off on the doctor. And then, of course, the doctor, or another military official who was breathing down the neck of the doctor. You need to do this experiment. We need it done, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so he pushes the button. And, of course, Walken is met with the sensory overload. He feels great.
His knees buckle, and I was really hoping to see it go further, but we didn't get to see the descent that we saw with Ronnie. But
and then at the end of the scene, it's we go to another scene where Walken standing up in front of a room full of, I guess, reporters.
And it's like the scene in Clockwork Orange, really,
Right.
where they're presenting Malcolm McDowell as this reformed psychopath.
Right.
And,
And so he's just saying, I don't feel angry anymore. And he's pressing the button. I don't feel sad, and pressing the button to kind of, it's simply, he's
fine.
pressing the button. That's what's making him say those things. He's not saying it. It's just the button that's saying it.
Yeah.
So all these interesting things came at the final 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating because we wanted to see more of that and less of Walken literally in his pajamas in a cast walking around the hospital asking what's going on over here.
Well,
Just go back to your room.
Okay. And the whole room is him opening doors to rooms and going, what's going on in here?
Yep.
What's this?
And then there'll be crazy monologues from Ronnie Cox about things. And you're like, okay, so that's a more developed character.
Yeah.
We have the full character arc of him. And I wish Walken would have done that role instead. There's so many great little lines that Ronnie said, and even really what Walken said. Because when Walken had the moment to shine, he's threatening this one nurse, and he's he's like, "Can you make babies? Maybe you should go do that." And you're like, "What is?"
He's just like purposely being ugly and mean to her, like finding the worst thing to say.
Right.
And that was a good standout line.
Right.
You make babies? Why don't you go do that?
And you're like,
she's just so hurt.
Right. Oh, no one loves me.
Yeah.
And
something about I keep thinking about Walken's state of mind at this point in his life. He's said that he didn't do another movie after this for like 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. And I think it speaks to his character. Like he's really he saw that movie, and I don't know if he was being hard on himself or if he just didn't like the material. But either way, he went back to stage and just began honing his skills more. And it's like one of those elements of a really successful person where they constantly think they're not good enough.
Yeah.
I really think that when you look at really successful people, it's all about almost low self-esteem a lot of the time,
right?
Where they just feel like no matter what they do, they could have always done better. And I think that's just a theory, man. That's just a lousy, rotten theory.
He was my best friend. I keep saying that over and over again. It's a theory, man. It's a lousy one at that. Where's my best friend? Trying to cover the New York accent. And this one, he was full on display. It was a full New Yorker.
There was another. Okay, so this. If we're still in Frankfurt, Germany at this point, there's a doctor in there who I'm pretty sure had like a Maine accent. He sounded like JFK,
Boston,
like Boston or something.
I don't know. There is just why was West Germany an important factor in this movie? Why did it need to take place in West Germany?
Well, I did look. They shot it in Denmark. Okay. So maybe they were there and they thought that it couldn't look like anywhere else.
Or they couldn't. I guess they couldn't do these experiments in America. Maybe something like that.
Maybe there's some animal cruelty laws. There was one shot that was really. I always hate it when I watch a movie and there's something that is disturbing me and it distracts me from the scene. Like there was this one movie before I get to the part in this movie. There was one movie I watched called The New Centurions, and it had George C. Scott in it. It was like this cop movie in the early 70s. Yeah. And there was a scene in it that would have been powerful enough where these cops, they get a call about like some domestic disturbance and they go in and they're trying, this woman is holding a baby and they're trying to get the baby and they're this whole uncut shot of the cops screaming at the woman and they give us the baby and it looks like she might hurt him. But the thing is, the whole time there's a real baby in the scene. Right. And there's screaming and cursing going on, and this baby doesn't know what's going on. So there's a similar moment in this where they're doing experiments on these little monkeys. Right. And
poor monkeys.
The poor monkeys. I mean, okay, there were a few scenes where they're just in cages or whatever, but then there's this one scene where they're doing this expository dialogue where they're describing what these experiments are, and there's this little monkey with bandages around his head, and his head, it looks like it's like sticking out of a glass thing. It looks like he's kind of caught and he can't move and he has wires attached to him. And they do this long uncut shot just at the monkey for 25 seconds with all the expository dialogue, and the whole time I'm just thinking, that poor monkey. I'm not listening to anything that they're saying.
Poor monkey. Why would they do that? I mean, it was the 70s. There's probably no laws. Yeah. The monkey was probably killed after that. So awful. So awful. All right, so 29-year-old Walken feeling somewhat depressed after this movie, as well as I, when I had to sit there and watch it. It was very, very, very boring. And it was only 90 minutes.
Yeah, when we paused it at one point, only 30 minutes had passed.
I was like, oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was not flying by at all.
It was not. And, I think Walken, especially later in his career, starts making a lot of interesting choices on movies that he's doing. He was just in, what was that cat movie?
With
Kevin Spacey turns into a cat.
Yeah.
9 Lives.
9 Lives, yeah.
He's in that movie.
And it looks like he's the same kind of character in...
Hey, I'm magical. I'm going to turn you into a cat.
I don't know. We'll figure it out, I guess.
I don't know. But, he did a lot of those weird roles.
Well, what's interesting is I can't find an exact quote on this, but I've found the same kind of fact about this in several articles and some cited on Wikipedia, that he very rarely turns down a role. And if he does, it's because he's just too busy with other roles. So he just likes to work.
Yeah, it's so true.
And he sees any project he works on as a learning experience. So it's good. You can learn from something that's successful, and you can learn from mistakes.
So if he says he doesn't say no to anything, I'm thinking hopefully he will not say no to this podcast.
That's true.
Being on this podcast. I'm just going to keep building. I'm going to keep stoking that fire in the background.
How long do you think we should wait until we try to reach out?
I'm going to say next episode.
We're not going to let it... We haven't...
Well, I think it would be fantastic to have him on and just to talk about weird things. We probably wouldn't even talk about movies. We probably talk about acting for a little bit, but then we just talk about normal stuff in life.
Yeah, in that Cosmopolitan interview that I found in 1980, he says to the guy that he likes to talk about nonsense things.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah. So we would just sit. It'd be great if we get him on here and we don't even ask him any questions about his projects.
No.
It's just about just
normal
bullshit
stuff in life. What are you doing?
Yeah, like, what'd you do today?
What'd you do today? Well, I got up and then I came here.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I would love to hear him talk about his day.
Right, so would I. Can you just narrate your day for us? What happened?
Yeah.
Oh, God, it'd be so fascinating. Be so fascinating. I talked to him about, like, you know, performing as a kid and stuff and hearing about all those crazy kind of stories and, you know, because I feel like he just loves it. He just loves to perform.
Yeah,
He just
definitely.
loves it.
In every way.
So
All right.
that I guess that concludes this here episode. What's next? What's the next thing?
The next thing, it would be a TV movie called Valley Forge, but I can't find a full copy of it anywhere. The most that exists is like a 2.5 minute clip on YouTube of a scene that Christopher Walken was in, where he plays like a German Hessian soldier during, it looks like, the Revolutionary War, maybe. But we can't find the full thing of that. So really, the next project is Next Stop Greenwich Village, and
He is as Chris Walken in this movie.
Oh, as Chris.
He dropped the Topher. He's just Chris Walken.
Topher? What are you talking about?
Christopher the Topher.
Oh, it took me a minute.
The Topher. Yeah, Topher Grace, right? Is that the kid from
Yeah.
that 70s show?
I didn't.
He's such a rebel. he's not Chris or Christopher. He's Topher.
Topher.
I think. I don't even know if that's right. I'm going to say it is.
Maybe his parents were the rebels, naming him Topher.
Yeah, I get it. It's better to blame him.
So yeah, Next Stop Greenwich Village. It was made in 1976, and the plot on IMDb reads: the portrayal of pretentiously bohemian youth. See, I'm trying to. The past couple times when we've read the plot synopsis on an IMDb for a future Chris Walken project,
Yeah.
I feel like I've been cynical, and I'm trying to remove that. I'm trying to.
You're trying to half glass full.
Yeah, like
I'm half glass empty over here because these movies sound miserable to me.
Well, the Anderson tapes. When I read the plot, I was like,
The Anderson tapes. See, I was like, oh, Sidney Lumet. This should be good. This should be good.
Yeah.
Movie started off interesting, but then it just fucking went like crazy. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, they all die at the end, and he gets arrested and then died. You're like, ah.
Well, I am going to. I've heard of this movie. I skimmed through it when I was trying to find. I believe Vincent Schiavelli is in it. Plays the subway ghost in Ghost.
Oh yeah.
And it looks like it has good ratings on IMDb, possibly on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm not sure. So I don't know. Half glass full over here. Glass half full.
Some of these like 70 movies, man, they're rough. When they're like super low budget and independent, it's like, man, this is when movies were rough back then, man. They just didn't have the budget, they didn't have the technology. There's scenes in this movie, the Happiness Cage body snatching Mind Snatcher movie. Where it's like it got so dark, I was like, I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah,
I can't see.
They had no budget. You could tell the film quality was shit.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe it was just bad print or who knows. But yeah, you couldn't see anything. He's like running. Doesn't he like try to escape at one point? I don't know. I don't remember what happens. He tries to escape, then he comes back and he's got tape on his head. I'm like, I guess he just kind of gave in. He's trying to run away, and the dog comes up. Hey, dog, just back up. I'll punch you in the face, dog.
I don't care.
I don't care
I'll
who
punch
you
an
are.
animal. I don't care who you are. Just go make babies.
Stupid. He's got the cast and he's in the pajamas. I felt so sorry for him. I was like, man, that's got to be miserable to film. I'm in a cast. The bathrobe was nice. He's in his pajamas. He's got the robe. That's comfortable. Then cast on the whole movie. The whole movie was like this. Arm in a sling.
Yeah, that's got to be rough.
Poor dude.
Yeah.
We'll talk to him about that when we have him on here.
Yeah, next episode.
What was that cast like? It was all right.
Then we'll move on.
Well said. All right, next stop, Greenwich Village. All right, that about does it for this episode. A very special thank you to Render Perfect Productions for lending us some basic equipment to make and record this podcast. Here's a little plug for them. Render Perfect Productions is an award-winning Baltimore-based video production and video marketing agency specializing in creating engaging visual content and interactive user experiences. For more info, go to myrender.com, kind of like our first official sponsor for the show. And speaking of which, if you want to help Brandon and I continue making this podcast, please visit our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/walkin101. We got a lot of great rewards, and anything you can help contribute to the show would greatly be appreciated. And you like this song in the background we use? This is by David Sestay. And if you want, check out more of his music on freemusicarchive.org. And finally, make sure you check out our website, Walkin101, for more info and updates. And subscribe to us on iTunes. Yes, iTunes. They actually let us put this podcast on iTunes somehow. And as always, thanks for walking with us.
I just insulted you. You're so stupid you don't get it? Look, can you make babies?
Yes, of course I can.
Then why don't you go do that?